Hey y'all, welcome to Coffee and Crime. This is our very first video. We are going to be covering a female serial killer by the name of Aileen Wuornos. Now the thing that makes Aileen special is that she was one of the first public female serial killers in the US. So we're going to go over a little bit of her background and her story and her case. Get ready to sip and listen, sip and watch. She was born in Florida, and she had a brother, but at the age of 4, her mother gave them both up and just kind of tossed them aside to her grandparents. So she was raised in the custody of her grandparents without seeing her mother or even knowing her father. She never even met her father. She didn't even know who he was. Aileen's father was actually in prison at the time she was born and was in there for pedophilia. So he was a very good egg. But by the time before he would get out, he committed suicide and hung himself in his cell. So she really didn't have a lot of guidance parental wise. Around the age of 9 is when she reported that her grandfather started sexually abusing her. She became experienced at the age of 9. Now that is extremely young, and really sad because her innocence and her childhood is already taken away from her. So it was also known that her grandfather would bring his friends over, and at the age of 14, Aileen was raped by one of her grandfather's friends. She decided she carried the baby to term, then gave him up for adoption. After she had the kid, she was known to sell her body for cigarette butts, for food, for money, for anything really, because she was born from nothing. You know, they didn't have a lot of money. She went on to her life, and around the age of 20, she got married actually to a older gentleman, high 60s, very old, very weird looking couple, someone that you would definitely stare at walking down the street, being like, oh man, is that like your grandfather and a granddaughter? Oh wait, they're kissing, what? Yeah. So yeah, she claimed that he abused her as well. He would hit her with his cane for money, is what she reported. Is that true? I don't know, but you know, it would make sense if it did happen. So her life, you know, she lost every motherly figure because her grandmother died from liver failure when she was, I don't know, 5. So her grandfather was her primary caretaker and obviously didn't do a very good job of that. So she really had nobody, and then she dropped out of school to have the kid at 15. So her life is completely gone. So the thing about Aileen is that she was convicted of 6 murders, but she had actually taken the lives of 7 men. Her first victim was by the name of Richard Mallory. This was actually self-defense. So Richard was a convicted rapist, and he had just gotten out of prison. He was found shot several times and dumped in the woods, and then his car was ditched along with him as well. So Aileen managed to hide the body after she killed him. So in her mind, once this first blood happens, she's getting a taste of power for the first time in her entire life. She has control. I think this is really what triggered her to go down and then murder 6 other men, because she's experienced it. She knows what it felt like, and it was invigorating for her. About a year later is when she took her next life. A man named David Spears. He was 43 years old. Now the thing about him was he was shot 6 times, and then he was stripped naked. His corpse was stripped naked. So she had managed to shoot him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and then proceeded to take the time to take all his clothes off. and then get rid of his body. So this one was obviously more personal. She took the time and the energy, and symbolically of undressing him, I can only imagine is kind of a sense of revenge, you know, because that's kind of how she felt, just kind of embarrassed, you know. Totally, he was stripped of his dignity, and you know, she was too, her whole entire life. I think that was her way of paying it forward. And then not even 5 days after David was killed, she went on to kill another man. So 5 days after they found David Spears' body, they found her next victim. His name was Charles, and he was 40 years old. But the thing about Charles was that he had been shot 9 times and then just carelessly disregarded on the side of the road. So the same MO here. She's still shooting to kill. But this time she has escalated from 6 shots to 9 shots. So she's getting even angrier, maybe even a little sloppier. She's getting more up here. And then just carelessly tosses him on the side of the road. Doesn't even want to take the time to undress him and make him feel what she had to feel. After this one, same year, we're still in the year 1990. Her third victim, 65-year-old Peter Seems, maybe? He disappeared while he was on a drive, so most likely she was patrolling for work, picked her up, and she killed him. Then it was reported that 2 women were driving his vehicle around town, and that happened to be Aileen and her girlfriend, Moore. So she'd go on to murder them and then rob them of their things. So after Dick's murder, she went on to kill 3 more men before she was picked up on an old warrant. And that warrant was from a fight in a biker bar in Florida. It's kind of ironic because she hates men and a biker bar is dominantly men. So what was she going there for? I really don't know. But before she was picked up and taken in, her girlfriend had already left her by that time. But her stories changed several times, saying how they were all attempted murders, like they were attempted rapes, how they were all trying to rape her. And then sometimes she would tell people that she was just trying to rob them. So she had conflicting stories depending on the person she was talking to, which is very manipulative and takes some sort of IQ for that. So the trial happened in 1992 in Florida, so the death penalty is legalized there. It only took 2 weeks for her trial before she was convicted. She did receive the death penalty. This is also what made her so popular, is that, I mean, she was like the 10th woman to ever receive the death penalty. Not common to see women receive the death penalty. So during her trial, this was the conflict of sanity was going on here. Was she sane enough to stand trial? Because a person has to be mentally stable to be given the death penalty. So she could have went for an insanity plea, but she revoked it. They diagnosed her, the defense did diagnose her as a psychopath with a borderline personality disorder. So here's the thing with psychopaths and sociopaths. They often get confused, thrown in the wrong kind of terminology. Psychopaths are the ones that are usually born that way. They have some sort of brain chemical imbalance, whereas sociopaths are more likely to have came out as killers because of their environment and their surroundings, as well as they are known to show guilt. More of a heat of the moment kind of kills, whereas psychopaths are more deliberate, cold, calculated, no feelings whatsoever. Those are your Hannibal Lecters, your Ted Bundys, your Jeffrey Dahmers. Also, very intelligent people are usually psychopaths. Your sociopaths are usually your unintelligent ones. So that kind of just gives to show that she was intelligent and she showed no remorse. And her showing no remorse led to her getting the death penalty. There's a quote for her saying how I am so sick of hearing this she's crazy stuff. I've been evaluated so many times. I'm competent, sane, and I'm telling the truth. I'm one who seriously hates human life and would kill again. Now, I mean, I may not be a lawyer, but I would have to say this quote would not help an insanity plea. Kind of will seal the deal on the chair, if you know what I mean. But she got what she wanted. She was executed at 9:47 p.m. on June 6th in 2002. Fun fact, Jeb Bush signed off on that. So before she was sentenced to death, like the day before her execution, she had interviews. And in one of her interviews, she was quoted saying, "I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock and I'll be back like Independence Day." Like the movie? Like Independence Day with Jesus. Obviously that is not coming from a sane person. She has mental issues going on. Now it is known that someone can escalate insanity to try and go for a last minute insanity plea to not be killed, but she was very accepting of wanting to die. She was cool with it. I just think that, can we say she was born to be this killer that she was? Or did her environment happen to trigger it for her? You know, I don't think it can be one or the other. I think it is a mixture of both. I mean, she was a psychopath, right? That's what she was diagnosed as. But, I mean, her environment, good God Almighty, did not help her at all. Since the age of 9. Since the age of 9, she was been sexually abused. The thing about Aileen is that what differs her from other known female killers is the way that she used a gun. Most women are known to use poison, some sort of seduction, suffocation, things that distance themselves from getting their hands dirty, or manipulative. But she was all for the blood and the gore. And I think that just really goes to show how angry she was and how much hatred she developed for men in general. And I think the death penalty was quite controversial because there have been plenty of crimes people have committed far worse than, I mean, murder is murder, right? But sometimes it can be bad, worse than what she did, and they weren't convicted of the death penalty. Is it because she is a woman? She is breaking the standards? I don't know. Also, yeah, her story inspired the movie Monster. You may or may not have seen it. In American Horror Story Hotel, her character is known, her stories in that as well. So, that was our very first episode of our very first case on Coffee and Crime. I just really wanted to do like a short basis of what we're going to do in the future. The more we get into it, the longer and more in depth each case and the analysis of the person will go on. So feel free to, comment what you want next, comment a case that you want, a serial killer, an unsolved crime, a conspiracy, a ghost story. We're going to do it all here, folks. We're going to do it all. And we're going to drink some coffee doing it too. It's going to be our form of yoga. So, cheers.